Russia has issued a warning to the United States regarding Iran. Moscow says U.S. strike threats are categorically unacceptable and warns of disastrous consequences, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry statement reported by Reuters. The Russian Foreign Ministry condemned what it described as subversive external interference in Iran's internal politics. Those who plan to use externally inspired unrest as a pretext for repeating the aggression against Iran committed in June 2025 must be aware of the disastrous consequences of such actions for the situation in the Middle East and global international security, the Foreign Ministry stated. The reference to June 2025 is significant. International reporting described Israeli strikes on targets in Iran and U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites during that period. The scope and impacts are still disputed across accounts. Moscow is warning Washington against repeating what it characterizes as aggression. The Russian warning emphasizes consequences beyond Iran itself. Disastrous consequences for the situation in the Middle East and global international security. The phrase encompasses a broad spectrum of potential escalation. Russia is not merely defending Iran, according to analysts. It is warning that American action could destabilize an entire region already marked by conflict and tension. The warning reflects Moscow's stated assessment that military action against Iran would not remain limited. It could spread through Iranian responses, through regional networks, through various forms of retaliation. Analysts and officials in multiple countries have warned a strike could trigger wider retaliation across the region. The exact U.S. internal warnings are not publicly detailed. Moscow and some American analysts may share similar concerns about what an attack on Iran could produce. Russia is not merely issuing warnings. According to reporting, Moscow has discussed material support. Iran has previously said it finalized arrangements for Russia to provide aircraft, including Mi-28 helicopters, but current deliveries and quantities are not publicly confirmed. Open source analysts and some outlets say photos appear to show Russian-made Spartak vehicles in Iran, but the context and timing can't be independently verified, and there's no official confirmation of Mi-28 deliveries. Analysts note that such equipment, if delivered, would be designed for armed insurgency scenarios, not current street-level protests. The discussion suggests Moscow may be preparing for possibilities beyond what has occurred so far. Russia is unlikely to commit troops on the ground, according to analysts. Instead, Moscow appears to be offering equipment and studying the situation, learning lessons from Venezuela, Syria, and past unrest, according to reporting. The specific equipment Russia has allegedly discussed deserves attention. Mi-28 attack helicopters are sophisticated military aircraft designed for combat operations. Spartak armored vehicles provide protection and mobility for security forces in hostile environments. This is not riot control equipment. According to analysts, such equipment would be designed for scenarios involving armed conflict, a level beyond what has been reported in current protests. The discussions raise questions. Is Moscow anticipating escalation? Is it preparing Iran for various scenarios? Or is it signaling to Washington that Iran will not face any challenge alone? The alleged equipment discussions serve multiple purposes: potential military capability and strategic messaging about Russia's stated commitment to its partner, according to analysts. Russia's approach reflects careful calculation, according to analysts. Moscow is offering support without direct military engagement, equipment discussions and strategic backing, but not Russian troops on Iranian soil based on available reporting. This approach mirrors Russian strategy elsewhere, according to analysts. In Syria, Russia provided air power and equipment while local forces conducted ground operations. In Venezuela, Russia condemned American actions but did not intervene directly when the U.S. reportedly detained President Maduro. Russia appears to be studying Iran's response to understand what works and what doesn't, according to reporting. The Kremlin may be analyzing various approaches as part of its strategic learning. Moscow learns from partners' experiences, both successes and challenges, to inform its own approaches, according to analysts who follow Russian foreign policy. President Trump has responded to the situation with his own announcements. Trump said all meetings with Iranian officials are canceled until the senseless killing of protesters stops, according to reporting. The statement represents an escalation of rhetoric and potentially a closing of diplomatic channels at a moment when such channels might be most needed. Trump also urged Iranian citizens to continue protesting against what he called the theocratic regime, according to reporting. He claimed America stands ready to support Iranians demonstrating against their leadership. The combination of canceled meetings, encouragement of protests, and military positioning creates a picture of increasing American pressure, with unclear endpoints or objectives, according to observers. Reports now cite over 2,000 killed in the protests, a significant increase from earlier figures. These figures come from various sources but have not been independently verified due to the ongoing internet blackout that severely restricts information flow from inside the country. Reports indicate Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei personally ordered the use of live fire against demonstrators, a claim that, if accurate, would represent direct authorization of lethal force from the highest level of Iranian leadership. This claim has not been independently verified. The gap between reported figures and verifiable information creates uncertainty. The numbers could be accurate, inflated, or understated. The information environment makes assessment from outside very difficult. What can be observed is that multiple sources report significant casualties, and that the situation has not de-escalated despite the crackdown. The protests have now entered their third week, according to reporting. What began with economic grievances has evolved. Demonstrators are now openly chanting for the end of the regime, according to reports. Demands that go far beyond the initial frustrations over currency collapse and inflation. The protests reportedly began when shopkeepers flooded streets to voice frustration over the sharp decline in the Iranian rial. Over the past year, the currency has plunged to historic lows while inflation has climbed significantly, leaving many families struggling to afford basic goods, according to economic reporting. From those economic origins, the protests have spread to dozens of cities and expanded to include students, workers, and others, according to reporting. The transformation from economic protest to political challenge represents the government's greatest concern and perhaps explains the intensity of the response, according to analysts. The economic context remains essential to understanding the unrest. The Iranian rial's collapse has devastated purchasing power. Inflation has made basic goods unaffordable for many families. Small businesses have struggled. Young people see limited economic futures. These grievances are real, not invented by foreign intelligence agencies. They represent lived realities for millions of ordinary Iranians who face difficult economic conditions daily. The question is how these genuine grievances relate to external pressures. Sanctions have intensified economic difficulties. The White House says it will impose a tariff on countries doing business with Iran to increase pressure. Whether that pressure serves Iranian citizens or primarily harms them remains a matter of contested perspective. What is clear is that ordinary Iranians bear the costs of both government policies and international pressure. Iran is engaged in an information effort alongside the street confrontations. The internet has been restricted. Phone networks are throttled. The government has limited access to mobile, landline, and national internet networks, according to the State Department advisory. Reporting and network analysts say most consumer internet is down, with only limited approved connections still visible. State media continues to broadcast uninterrupted. Independent voices remain silenced, according to digital rights organizations. In official messages sent to citizens, authorities urged people to trust only state-linked outlets, according to reporting. One text promoted a news agency tied to security services. Another called people to join a pro-regime rally, accusing the United States and Israel of fueling unrest. But protesters have found a workaround. Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet system has become what reporting describes as a remaining connection to the outside world. Through Starlink, Iranians are uploading raw videos of demonstrations and crackdowns, images that would otherwise not leave the country, according to reporting. Reports say Starlink is illegal in Iran and users risk severe penalties if caught with terminals. One Iran resident, speaking to the Wall Street Journal via a Starlink connection, said he uploads videos taken by relatives and sends them to trusted contacts abroad who publish them on social media. People with Starlink never reveal who they are or where they operate from, according to the report. The technology has become a digital lifeline under constant threat. Iran is responding to the Starlink challenge. Digital rights groups and reporting say authorities are trying to locate and confiscate Starlink terminals, including through jamming and rooftop searches in some areas. It's electronic warfare, says Amir Rashidi of the Mion Group. a U.S.-based nonprofit tracking censorship, according to reporting. He says authorities are actively seeking Starlink users, confiscating satellite dishes and tracking signals. The interference is most severe in protest hotspots, according to digital rights experts. Disruptions spike at night when demonstrations reportedly occur in larger numbers. Authorities have conducted searches in western Iran, according to reporting, seeking the satellite dishes that connect protesters to the outside world. Starlink dishes are being smuggled into Iran despite significant risks, according to reporting. Some arrived by boat from Dubai. Others cross land borders through Iraqi Kurdistan. They began appearing in larger numbers after the 2022 protests, according to reporting. That was when Elon Musk said SpaceX would seek sanctions exemptions to activate terminals. Since then, Starlink has remained a digital lifeline under constant threat. The smuggling networks represent the determination of those seeking to break the information restrictions and the risks they take to maintain connections to the outside world. For the government, these networks represent a security concern. For protesters, they represent the ability to document what is happening and share it with the world. Russia's warning comes alongside China's earlier statements opposing American interference. Both major powers have now publicly positioned themselves against U.S. pressure on Iran. Both frame their positions around sovereignty and non-interference principles. Both warn against military action. The positions, whether coordinated or parallel, create a diplomatic framework opposing what they characterize as American unilateralism. China purchases the majority of Iranian oil, according to trade trackers cited by Reuters. Russia has discussed military equipment and provides strategic backing. Together, they represent significant stated support for Tehran, though whether that support would prove meaningful in the face of American military action remains untested. The Venezuela precedent is instructive. Both Russia and China condemned the U.S. operation that reportedly detained President Maduro, but neither could reverse it. Russia's explicit reference to June 2025 deserves attention. The aggression against Iran committed in June 2025 refers to the conflict during that period. International reporting described Israeli strikes on targets in Iran and U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. The scope and impacts are still disputed across accounts. That conflict demonstrated several things, according to various reports. Iran's infrastructure proved vulnerable to coordinated attack, but Iran said it targeted American positions in response. Iran said it targeted Al Udeid, while Qatar and U.S. officials said the missiles were intercepted and there was no impact on the base, according to reporting at the time. Russia's reference serves as reminder attacking Iran has consequences in Tehran's view. Moscow is warning Washington to consider what a repeat might bring. Meanwhile, there are reports of military activity in the region. Open-source trackers and regional outlets have claimed unusual U.S. air activity around Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, strategically located approximately 200 to 300 kilometers from the Iranian border. Reuters has not confirmed the specific aircraft movements that some outlets have claimed. The base serves as a hub for U.S. military operations in the Middle East. The claimed activity raises questions about American intentions. Is this routine positioning, preparation for possible action, a signal designed to pressure Tehran? The answer remains unclear, but reported activity is notable given Russia's warnings about the consequences of what it characterizes as repeating June's aggression. Any consideration of action must account for Iranian capabilities. During the June conflict, Iran said it launched missiles at American positions in response to strikes, according to reporting. Tehran maintains it can impose costs on adversaries. Iran has spent decades developing asymmetric capabilities for scenarios of conflict with superior conventional forces, according to military analysts. Missiles, drones, and regional networks provide Tehran with options. Russia's alleged equipment discussions, helicopters, armored vehicles, aircraft, would add to Iranian capabilities if delivered. Moscow appears to be ensuring that Tehran has resources to face various scenarios, according to analysts. The implications of military action extend far beyond Iran's borders. Analysts and intelligence assessments suggest Tehran could respond to American strikes not only with missiles, but by activating networks across the region, according to international reporting. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Iranian-aligned forces in each country could target American personnel and interests, according to analysts. A strike on Iran could become a regional situation involving multiple fronts. This is the disastrous consequences Russia warns about. Not merely damage to Iran, but destabilization of an entire region already marked by conflict, according to Moscow's framing. Some American analysts have also expressed concerns about regional escalation, according to various reports. That Trump's announcement that all meetings with Iranian officials are canceled raises questions about diplomatic options. If military action carries risks of regional escalation and economic pressure has not achieved American objectives, diplomacy would seem to be an important channel to maintain. Canceling meetings closes that channel, at least publicly. Whether back-channel communications continue is unknown. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has noted that what you're hearing publicly from the Iranian regime is quite different from the messages the administration is receiving privately, according to previous reporting. The gap between public posturing and private communication may leave room for de-escalation that neither side can acknowledge publicly. Iran's government continues to project confidence despite the challenges. Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi has claimed security forces are in control and presented what he says is evidence of foreign involvement in the unrest: audio recordings, confessions, seized money, videos. None of this evidence has been made public or independently verified. Tehran frames the unrest as foreign-backed destabilization, an extension of the June conflict, planned outside the country in order to bring chaos to Iran, according to Iranian officials. This narrative serves the government's interests by delegitimizing protesters as foreign agents rather than citizens with genuine grievances. Whether it reflects reality, partial truth, or fabrication cannot be determined from available information. Diplomatic contacts reportedly continue despite public tensions. Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi said he has remained in contact with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, according to Reuters. The ongoing contact suggests that neither side has entirely closed the door to communication, even as public rhetoric remains confrontational. Nuclear talks could provide a framework for broader discussions and potential relief from economic pressure that has contributed to the crisis, according to analysts. The private messages that reportedly differ from public statements may contain openings neither side can acknowledge publicly. Multiple framings compete for interpretation of events. Washington's framing: Iranians are protesting for freedom against a repressive government. American pressure supports those seeking change. Tehran's framing: foreign-backed elements are affecting Iran as extension of conflict. American statements encourage instability. Security forces defend the nation. Moscow's framing: external interference is categorically unacceptable. Military threats risk disastrous consequences for regional and global security. Beijing's framing: sovereignty must be respected. External interference worsens crises. The United States pursues its agenda at others' expense. Each framing serves the interests of those making it. The truth may contain elements from multiple perspectives. American sanctions raise fundamental questions. Proponents argue sanctions pressure governments to change behavior, that economic difficulty creates incentives for policy shifts. Critics argue sanctions primarily hurt ordinary people who have no control over government policy, that economic suffering punishes citizens for the actions of leaders they cannot influence. The Iranian case illustrates this tension. Sanctions have contributed to economic difficulties. Economic difficulties have driven protests, but the protests have brought crackdowns, not policy changes. Are sanctions achieving American objectives, or are they causing suffering without producing desired outcomes? The answer depends on what objectives truly are and whose suffering matters in the calculation. Lost in geopolitical calculations are ordinary people. Iranians face economic hardship intensified by sanctions. They face security forces responding to protests. They face an information blackout that isolates them from the outside world. They face the uncertainty of what American action might bring. Those protesting take enormous risks: arrest, injury, or worse. Those who stay home face the same economic pressures that drove others to the streets. American citizens have been told to leave Iran and not expect government help. Iranian citizens have no such option. They must remain and face whatever comes. Whether the coming days bring escalation or de-escalation, ordinary people will bear the consequences of decisions made in capitals far from their daily struggles. Russia's warning and stated support raise questions about its role. Moscow is offering diplomatic backing and has discussed equipment. But is Russia prepared to intervene directly if the United States attacks Iran? The Venezuela precedent suggests limits. Russia condemned the American operation but could not reverse it. Russian rhetoric did not prevent the reported detention of President Maduro. Iran may represent a different calculation, a more strategically important partner closer to Russian interests with greater stated capability to impose costs on attackers. But Russian support likely has limits. Moscow will back Tehran rhetorically, but whether that backing extends to direct confrontation with the United States remains uncertain. Iran's survival may ultimately depend on its own capabilities and the costs it can impose, not on rescue from Moscow. The crisis test claims about multipolar alternatives to American dominance. Russia and China position themselves as defenders of sovereignty against American interference. They provide diplomatic support, economic ties, and stated military discussions. But what does that support actually mean in practice? And if the United States attacks Iran, will Russia and China respond with more than condemnation? Will their support prove meaningful or merely rhetorical? The credibility of multipolar alternatives depends on answers to these questions. Partners watching how Russia and China respond to American pressure on Iran will draw conclusions about what such partnerships are worth. Several paths to escalation exist. American military action against Iranian security forces, the option Trump is reportedly considering, could trigger Iranian responses against U.S. positions and allies. An incident involving American forces in the region, intentional or accidental, could spark escalation neither side fully controls. Continued crackdowns producing mounting casualties could increase pressure on Trump to act, particularly if he has drawn red lines about killing protesters. Conversely, diplomatic contacts could produce frameworks for de-escalation. Economic discussions could create face-saving paths away from confrontation. The trajectory depends on decisions not yet made and events not yet occurred. Possibilities for de-escalation exist alongside escalation risks. Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi said he has remained in contact with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, according to Reuters. Nuclear talks could provide a framework for broader discussions and potential relief from economic pressure that has contributed to the crisis. The private messages that reportedly differ from public statements may contain openings neither side can acknowledge publicly. Whether these possibilities can outpace escalation pressures remains the central uncertainty. The gap between public rhetoric and private communication may be where de-escalation happens, if it happens at all. The world watches a significant moment in international relations. Russia has warned that American attacks on Iran are categorically unacceptable and would have disastrous consequences, according to its foreign ministry statement. China has opposed interference and warned against force. Iran projects control while facing significant internal challenges. The United States positions itself while issuing warnings and economic pressure. The configuration represents a test of competing visions of international order. American action versus stated principles of sovereignty and non-interference. The coming days may prove significant. Reported military activity suggests preparation for various scenarios. Russia's alleged equipment discussions suggest preparation for others. Trump's rhetoric points toward action. Some analysts suggest his military advisors may counsel caution. The tension between these pressures will determine American decisions. Iran's government projects confidence while continuing operations. Whether that confidence reflects reality or necessity remains unclear. Russia and China have stated their positions. Whether those positions translate into meaningful action if the United States acts remains the unanswered question. Russia's message stands. Those who plan to use externally inspired unrest as a pretext for repeating the aggression against Iran committed in June 2025 must be aware of the disastrous consequences of such actions for the situation in the Middle East and global international security. The warning is clear. Whether it will affect American calculations is not. The world watches and waits.